Welcome to the Krusty Fox, and first of all, a quick word of thanks. Since my last upload, you wonderful people have pushed the channel up over 500 subscribers. Thank you all for joining me on my snarky little journey through 90s New York, and I hope you all stick around as we watch Carrie find ever more creative ways to ruin her own life. And who knows, maybe we'll take a few detours along the way. And if you haven't subscribed yet, there's no time like the present. There's plenty more sarcasm where this came from. This week's episode is titled The Baby Shower, meaning that even being unborn isn't enough to spare you from Carrie Bradshaw's judgment. Carrie starts on a rare note of honesty as she admits that one of the hardest things in life is to be happy for somebody else. For you, Carrie. For you. After receiving invites to apparently close friend Lainey's baby shower, the bitter old lady brigade convene at Carrie's apartment to prove her right with their moaning. Mind you, they're not all on the same page this time. While Carrie, Samantha and Miranda would rather stick pins in their eyes than fawn over a baby bump, Charlotte's 2.4 children mania places her firmly in the opposite camp. Carrie theorizes that this baby shower is particularly offensive because early 90s Lainey was a wild child. A thankfully brief flashback to a party shows Lainey turning the place into a bisexual love-in while Miranda, Samantha and Carrie look on. For some reason, everybody accidentally showed up dressed as different eras of Madonna. Carrie's premature music era cowgirl abomination looks like what would have happened if Lady Gaga planned a Joanne phase with a concussion. While Lainey's chosen era isn't immediately obvious, her dancing in the corner with her norks out at the slightest provocation implies it to be erotica. Carrie then attributes a long-time rivalry between Samantha and Lainey to the former's insecurity. A bit of projection from our plucky narrator, I think. Carrie goes on to moan that Lacey has gone off book, as she expected her to get it on with Sid Vicious. FYI, Sid Vicious died in 1979, so jumping his bones in the 90s would be both extremely literal and a sign that Lacey's problems run quite a bit deeper. Back in the present, Miranda claims that motherhood is a cult, and Carrie implies that they should attend Lainey's party because it'll be like a freak show. Again, this is somebody Carrie described 2 minutes earlier as a close friend. By the time the gang are all packed up and ready to head to Lainey's house in Connecticut, Carrie notes that her monthly visitor is a week late. Naturally, her reaction is to ignore it and begin dressing like the protagonist in a black and white French film about depression. As they pile into their rental car, we see two predictable extremes of gift giving. Charlotte rocks up with an overstuffed baby basket, and Carrie forgot, so decides that the basket is from her too. When they arrive at the shower, Samantha immediately dips out for a drink, and Charlotte is pulled beneath a scrum of like-minded boomers. Carrie and Miranda are introduced to the assembled mothers and their various quirks, one by one, like they're a crap version of the Avengers. Lainey saves the best for last, cheerily pointing out Betsy, who's described as being like an old married couple with her creepy-looking son Harry. I'll permit Carrie and Miranda their looks of terror here, not least because the way Harry is dressed makes it look like he has a 666 birthmark hidden underneath his bowl haircut. Having spent more than 30 seconds in a crowd who haven't made her the centre of attention, Carrie decides to do it for herself, by wondering if the delayed appearance of her lady in red means that she'll soon join the cult of motherhood too. Of course, our handy knowledge of the future tells us that Carrie never does squirt out a twerp of her own, for which Generation Z should be eternally grateful. Not that it would matter anyway, because the pollution of the gene pool caused by any Bradshaw-Preston progeny would be an extinction-level event for humanity. Carrie escapes to the bathroom and discovers a nude portrait of Lainey hanging above the porcelain throne, which she takes as a sign that some of her old wild behaviour survived insemination. This is, of course, standard Carrie behaviour. Form an opinion, namely that mothers think they're superior to her but are really just as trashy as she is, then skulk around planting imaginary evidence until she's satisfied that she's right. She's like an extremely corrupt Columbo who looks only slightly better in a dress. In the den, Charlotte's praise of her host's perfect life ends abruptly when one of the mothers lets slip that Lainey has settled on the name Shayla if she has a girl. The name Charlotte apparently told everyone she'd picked out for her future daughter. Enter Samantha, who are left to assume has been knocking back the contents of the drinks cupboard this whole time. After a decade of edging her hatred towards Lainey, she seizes on the justification to attack and with a well-slung insult, grabs the others and heads for the door. Having spent the afternoon judging mothers for what they see as their poor life choices, the gang stop off at a bar on the way home so that they can indulge in a spot of drink driving. Finally, Carrie's anxiety over her own potential impending motherhood catches up with her, and she admits that Aunt Flo has yet to arrive in town. Samantha compares the situation to being held at gunpoint, which isn't particularly helpful, but is at least very much on brand. Although unsure of what she'll do in a general sense, Carrie does decide not to tell Mr. Big. A wise move, since a relatively new girlfriend he seems only sort of into announcing her pregnancy is likely to send him racing for the nearest travel agent. Back at home, Charlotte pulls out a wish box which contains accumulated keepsakes of her dream life. A Shayla pillow is quickly thrown aside, and I don't have time to get into it, but she also tears up pictures of her dream homes and dream men. I don't recognise either of the gentlemen in question, but if you do, then feel free to comment below. Otherwise, I'm just going to assume that Charlotte goes around obsessing over stock images of anonymous men she finds in photo frames. Actually, you know what? Don't tell me. I prefer my way. Carrie and Miranda, meanwhile, go shopping for pregnancy tests. In a moment of crystalline clarity, Carrie admits that she doesn't think she'd be very good at motherhood because she used to mistreat her childhood dolls. Miranda tries to help by admitting to a spot of light animal abuse when she was a child, which, if you're unaware, is one of the telltale signs of a future serial killer, so again, very on brand. Regardless, the truth is that Carrie's mothering style would probably most closely resemble a cuckoo. Shoot your offspring out as efficiently as possible and then trick somebody else into raising it. Probably Charlotte, let's be honest. Carrie decides not to take the test, ignore her problems, and go to a party thrown by Samantha instead. When Lainey calls to blame her shady baby shower behaviour on hormones, Carrie makes the grave error of telling her where she's off to. At the party, Carrie muses that Samantha only threw it because of what she refers to as her inadequacy. I truly don't know what she has against Samantha this week, but since Ms. Jones doesn't want kids, loves life and does whatever she wants, I'll just have to chalk it up to Carrie deflecting her own issues and frankly being an a-hole. Carrie's inability to keep her mouth shut about anything ever leads to Lainey bursting through the door like the Kool-Aid man. She waddles in like a demented penguin, intent on having the kind of fun her suburban life has robbed her of. Because of course, Carrie's insane theory about motherhood being a mask has to be right. Shallow Charlotte's shattered dreams are stuck back together by fellow partygoer, stock trader, and Hampton's homeowner Jonathan. Because apparently men's only career choices in Sex and the City's New York are writer, financier, or unemployed. Tired of being diverted from the bar by Killjoy Carrie, who is for once using her powers for good, Lainey remembers that two guests have been missing from the party this whole time. Her honkers. She gives her usual stripping routine the old college try, but only gets as far as flashing a shoulder, like she's starring in an edit of Showgirls that has to be shown mid-afternoon at a church event. As Carrie bundles her into a taxi back to Connecticut, Lainey ominously tells her that one day she'll wake up and not recognise herself. Accurate. As if self-administering exposure therapy in the creepiest way possible, Carrie spends the whole next day sitting on a bench watching children in a play park and somehow not getting arrested. On the way home, her body, having had enough of this storyline and keen to stop her from landing it in jail for the rest of its life, cordially invites her to the Red Wedding, and so puts an end to her indecision. We're left to wonder whether Carrie had decided that she did want to become a parent after all. If it helps with this downbeat ending, I'll remind you that any kid of Carrie's would likely end up singing for pennies at the Port Authority long before she prioritised them over a footwear sale. Silver linings, and all that. And that's it for this episode. If you enjoyed this installment, then please drop a like to let me know, subscribe for more content every week, and if you can, share these videos so that more people can hop on board the judgment train with us. And if you're still here, prepare for me to take my life in my hands by asking this week's question. Would you react the same way if a friend used a baby name which you'd claimed as your own? Answers in the comments below, and the best will make an appearance in next week's video. Either way, thanks for watching, and as ever, if you can't be good, be crusty.